All right. Hello, everyone. Let's get started. We have a really exciting and very packed discussion planned. Welcome to the webinar, Contract Worker Justice, Creating a Fairer SFU. Before I start, I just want to acknowledge that personally, I'm sitting on the unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. And I'd like to encourage everyone to just take a few seconds to reflect the traditional land that you're on. Especially, we know that the exploitation of labor and exploitation of workers are so intrinsically connected to the stolen land and to the continuation of erasure of indigenous people and, to continue the colonial and capitalist logic. So everything that we do as we fight for workers' rights, as we fight for better working conditions, we are in firm solidarity with indigenous struggles. And we know that we will not be free until indigenous people are free on their land, until the land is returned back to them. So I just would like to invite all of us to take a little bit of time just to reflect on all the work that we do and the land that we work on. All right, everyone. Once again, welcome to our webinar. We are a coalition of folks. So we are the Contract Worker Justice at SFU, and we are a coalition of SFU students, SFU faculties, workers, and community members. We came together because we really want to shine light on the outsourcing practice that has been going on in SFU for many, many years, and the kind of precarious working condition as a result of that practice. And we started a campaign to demand SFU to bring our food service and custodial workers back in-house. They are a very essential part of our community. We don't know, we think it's very unfair that they continue to be excluded from our campus community. Some of the impacts of outsourcing of our food and cleaning service puts a lot of downward pressure on terms of conditions of employment, especially contractors. They only success in obtaining contract depending on who submits the lowest bid. So this system also limits a lot of job security, excludes workers from services available to other workers in the university, things like childcare, parking, subsidized tuition. And the result is a low wage, insecure, precarious workforce, which could not be more different from some of the highest paid employees at SFU. And cleaners and food service workers on campus are also primarily women, workers of colors, and immigrants. And during this pandemic time, they have suffered a lot of layoff and intensified precarity as well. So today, we have a group of very, very knowledgeable and wise panelists from all different areas of labor and all different areas of our community. They're here to share why they support bringing workers back in-house, and they're here to share why outsourcing work has negative impact on our workers in our communities. So just before we get into all of that, we just have a few housekeeping stuff just to make sure that everyone knows what we're gonna do in today's event. And really quickly, I just realized I forgot to introduce myself. Hi, everyone. My name is Jade. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a community organizer and also a student at SFU. I'll be a moderator today. So if you have any questions, if you have anything, just feel free to type in the chat. But if you do have questions that you want to ask, please do use our Q&A function on the Zoom. On the Zoom, I sound like I never used to before. Okay, make sure you type in your questions in Q&A because that's where we're going to moderate the questions. Okay, cool. Can we go to the next slide into our agenda for today? Cool, folks, just really quickly to let people know that we're gonna really quickly go through our community agreement first, just so that we can create the safest place for people to interact with with each other. And we're going to go into a discussion with our panelists. I'm really excited about that. And afterwards, we will have time for folks to reflect, to ask your questions and put any comments. Once again, if you have any questions, make sure that you put your question in the Q&A. And at the end, we will have some closing reflections. Okay, let's get into our community agreements. Let's make sure our space is, a safer space so that we can all participate in the most accessible way. All right, cool. We are gathered in spirit of mutual support and respect for each other. And we acknowledge that diverse learning journey that we are all on, they are different. We are all at different places and we are listening to learn. We are also, we accept and we expect non-closure. And we are leaving our assumption at the door in order to facilitate a non-judgmental space for dialogue. We also don't assume pronouns, we don't assume genders or any other identities based on people's usernames or images. And also, if you don't want to turn on your camera or anything like that, feel free to do so. And this is a zero tolerance space for any oppressive behaviors. So if anyone inciting harm towards other participants in this webinar, we will ask you to leave. And questions please put your questions in the Q&A feature, and chat will also be tracked throughout the presentation. So feel free to comment. I know that there's many folks with a lot of wisdom and knowledge in this room today as well. So feel free to share what you have. And also because we are only here for an hour today, we will not be able to get to everyone's question, but still ask them anyways, right? And even if some of the question we don't have the answer to, it's just really good to have those questions for us to continue to consider as we, continue with our demand and our campaign. And also this session will be recorded and it will be posted on the CERi website for folks who cannot attend today. And anyone, if you want live transcript, we do have the function of live transcript just at the bottom of your Zoom. So you can just click on it and it will work. And I also want to let folks know that even though we're gonna hear mostly from our panelists today, there are many other ways that you can interact with each other. We also prepare something called Padlet. So it's just, Padlet is kind of like an online whiteboard where you can go and just write your comments and stuff. And there are some questions being asked there. And also we ask you to go and just share any kind of solidarity messages that you want to share with the workers. Cool. All right. Now, before we get started, we just kind of want to, see how we all have connected with each other in the community. So we have a little poll that we prepared to ask. So the poll question will be, how have you connected with food and cleaning worker at SFU? No, as a student at SFU, I always really look forward to my time when I go to the cafeteria and have a good chat with the ladies there. They help me go through some of the hard days at school, for sure. All right, let's take a look at how we have already connected with each other. Yeah, so cool. Most of us have all had conversations with a worker before. We have all said hi and asked how each other's day is going. And also we are, a lot of people here are advocating for better working conditions for each other. Amazing. Cool. This is just a reminder for all of us that we are all connected in all of our struggles, and we all see each other every day. So there's very many small ways to show solidarities. All right. Now I'd like to invite our panelists to come on the screen and to get into our discussion today. Have our panelists come on the stream. So I'm really excited to have all of our panelists here today. They all represent such different, like vast amount of knowledge. Cool, as they slowly trickle in. Thank you so much. All right. First, we have Katrina. It's such an honor to have you here. Katrina is our MLA for the Burnaby and Lohi writing. And Katrina has endorsed our campaign, and I'm just so happy to see you here. I have heard so much about you because, I'm also a member of the Teaching Support Staff Union, and we have received a lot of solidarity from you in the past few years. So I just would like to invite Katrina first to speak, just to let us know why you support this campaign and, some of the impacts that you have seen about contracting out and, some of the things you would like to see out of the campaign. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jade. And I also want to begin by acknowledging that I'm speaking here from the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, and taking a moment for us to remember the importance of reconciliation through the work and the conversations that we have every single day. And I also want to say that I'm really here to learn from everyone. I'm so honored to be able to be on this panel, and I see, the guest speakers here. A lot of you are labor activists, has long history fighting for workers, and has real personal experience of how it's so important to support workers and income equality for our communities and for families in our province. And I just want to thank you all for your great work. And also, I know a lot of the participant here also has long history with labor and in grassroots community movement. And I'm really here to learn from you, and also say that I'm really thankful to be the local MLA for Burnaby Lohi and the Minister of State for Childcare, building a new social program here in BC. I'm so excited about our childcare plan, especially now BC is the first province in Canada to implement the National Childcare Plan. And a lot of the issues that we care about, from income equality, from supporting workers and families through childcare, housing, investing in local infrastructures, and they all connect together. And I'm very thankful to have the experience of connecting with students from SFU, faculty members, workers, and families living in a community to learn about some of the gaps and challenges that families face. And as a former student at SFU, a proud alumni, I think we can work together to do better. And I also want to acknowledge that as a government, there's so much we have to do and step up, and working with local partners, labor movement, and workers and families together to make sure we create a more inclusive and equitable society for all. And I remember, I think it was 2016 or 17, I went for a rally at SFU, mostly with labor movement and local community members as well, supporting contract workers. I remember meeting some of the food services workers, mostly women, women of color, EPOC women, some immigrants, and learning about their experience and how worried they were for their job security, which should be a basic right that any worker should be entitled to, not to worry about losing the same job that they were doing because of contract flipping. And that was unacceptable. I do want to say that as a government, I am proud that we have taken a step to end, to provide more successorship stability that has addressed that issue, to make sure when contracts are being changed that there is stability for workers. But can we do more? Of course we can do more. Of course we can continue to look at the existing challenges and gaps in the system to make sure that we can provide more security, more stability for workers. And I think the discussion we're going to have here today is going to be really meaningful. I did have an opportunity to engage and had a conversation with SFU President Joey Johnson. And I learned that she is quite open-minded about exploring options and working with stakeholders together to see what are the options available to be able to go on this journey and have an open dialogue, which I think is a positive thing to see. But when I was thinking about today's event and the conversation we're going to have, one thing that really kind of hit me is, currently food services is contracted out with for-profit companies. And when there is a focus on profit, it kind of, goes against our intention and our spirit and shared values about building a community and supporting each other together and supporting the equity and the stability for workers. And I think SFU being a leading university, we are always proud about how engaged SFU is, and this is a very well-known university. I think we can be a good leading example to provide stability to all workers working on campus. So I look forward to this conversation and learning about the options that may be available to ensure that we support every worker on campus and working in our community with the job security that they deserve, that they should be entitled to. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Katrina, for being here. And it's so true. This campaign is also a call for SFU to live up to, the values that they really want to see in the community, right? To be an engaged university, and also to really pay attention to equity, inclusion, and diversity. So thank you, Katrina, for that. And next, we are going to chat with Jim. So Jim Sinclair is currently the chair of Fraser Health Authority. He's also an adjunct professor at labor studies at SFU. And Jim has also been, working in the labor movement for so many years, and just has a lot of knowledge and wisdom on this topic as well. And right now, Fraser Health is actually going through their own process of bringing in their workers. And it has been quite a process. So Jim is here to share his wisdom on that, to just let us know how that process has been going, and just any wisdom that you want to share with us on this topic.
Wisdom would start with turning on your microphone, would it? Thank you very much, Jade, and thank you for the organizers of this event, and thank you to the people organizing this campaign. Because without everybody getting together, we won't be successful. And that's the number one lesson of the labor movement and all of us, is that it takes a movement to move a mountain. And I guess we have to move Burnaby Mountain, so it's going to take a movement to do that. And I also want to acknowledge that I'm on the unceded territory of the Coast Salish Nation, and that I continue to live and work in a racist society that oppresses people and continues to oppress people, and that we all have to be dedicated to ending that racism and creating a society of equality. And I also acknowledge the work we do to do that as well. Contracting out isn't new. We kind of think about it in the public sector, but it's actually been the cancer that ate the private sector first. And that many private sector workers watch their jobs either disappear down the street, down the road, over the border, or across the ocean. And it was all about contracting out there too. And if I had any advice to people, the best time to fight contracting out is before it starts. And that was the private sector fight for years and years. Those of us with gray hair remember the great strike of the IWA. Went on for 7 months or 8 months, and it was over getting contracting out language, because they could see the writing on the wall, and that their jobs were going to disappear to cheaper labor and contracted labor from high-paying, good union jobs. And I think you can watch that pattern. I think we lost about a third, close to a half of our manufacturing sector to cheaper labor zones in other parts of the world, and some within our own country. So again, it has been a tool to lower wages, lower benefits, to break the union, fundamentally break people's right to be organized and have voices, and to remove, and it's also about getting rid of responsibility. Employers don't want responsibilities when they contract out, so they contract out that to somebody else. And they pay one check, and they stop being managers, really. And it's also very hard to oversee the services. So it is about removing the responsibility of employers. In the public sector, we contract out billions of dollars a year in the healthcare sector to private contractors. They're not all private. There's lots and lots of nonprofits in the healthcare system as well, but there are private sector ones as well, quite a bit in long-term care, et cetera. Long-term care is a great example. I'm not going to talk about it because my time's short. I'll talk about two examples quickly and maybe some insights. When we took over the board of Fraser Health, about 50% of the home support workers that go around and take care of mostly seniors were contracted out to Compass, the names that I'm sure Mitch can ring off his tongue: Compass, Sodexo, All these companies are the major ones, and there was one nonprofit. And when we looked at it very seriously, we realized that the people the residents, simply were getting the care from the private sector. They simply weren't getting the hours. They weren't getting the care. It was costing us a lot of money. We had no oversight. And by the way, we wanted to bring in team care so that we would have the community nurse associated with the home care work, the social worker, other people, so that people were surrounded by a group of people to help them. And we realized that we were very restricted under the private sector to do that. So we made the decision to bring it back in. And we repatriated, I think it was a total of 4,000 jobs from the private sector back to the public sector and integrated them into a healthcare system. And I do want to acknowledge the support of the government to do that as well. But it was the board's decision to do that, and it was the right one. And certainly COVID convinced us it was the right one if there was ever any doubt before COVID came and home support became so critical. The other one was perhaps the largest contracting out or firing, I would say firing. It's not contracting out sounds like a procedure, but really it was the largest firing of women. And these are mostly women of color and immigrant women since the Second World War, when the men came home and took all the jobs back. So 7,500 to 8,000 workers lost their jobs in about 2002, and they were fired, and then they were blacklisted. So they were not only fired, they were blacklisted. They couldn't come and get their jobs back because the companies that took over, including Compass, did not want to hire unionized people because they would reorganize the union, which ultimately they did, but it took a long time and a few months. So they went from wages of $18.50 an hour to $10. They lost all their benefits, and it was a massive transfer of wealth from the system, from the people who do the work back to the system. And today they still go to work at less pay than they got in 2003. So it was a massive transfer of wealth. And I was figuring out the math the other day, probably $500 million to $1 billion. It's hard to tell exactly. Went from the poorest paid workers to pay for the healthcare system. And one of the fundamental questions we have to ask is, that's how we want to pay for healthcare? Because that's a pretty large donation by the poorest people in the system to the healthcare system. Consider what other people get paid. So they tore up the system. They tore up the contracts. They also illegally tore up the contracts to do that, by the way. And so they've been out there for 17 years, or 18 years now. They've been contracted out. The wages have crawled back up to $17 an hour. They've been reorganized and reunionized, but they still don't have the same respect. They're still not part of the team, which is really part of the whole deal. Is people live in their silos and they're not part of the team. And in healthcare, the people who make the food and the housekeepers, they're critically pieces of the team. Dirty hospitals kill people. It's not complicated. If the hospital's dirty, people die. And during COVID, those people went in and worked as hard as anybody else as part of that team, cleaned and cleaned and cleaned, got COVID, got sick like other healthcare workers, and did their jobs and went home at night and risked their fairness. So we've been working for a long time to get that back in. I have since the day it happened, actually. To be honest with you, I was there the day it was announced. And I could give you a long story about how we might have done things differently then, but we didn't. But today, we're now in the process of moving towards bringing that back in. We decided 2 years ago we wanted all those people back in Fraser Health, and the government has said the same thing. And there's some processes that may be useful for where you're at now in Simon Fraser, but there's some things to remember. First of all, the system doesn't work that well when it's privatized. So we did 2 studies of the system. So we hired third parties to come in and take a look and say, first of all, how does this system work? How do we pay these people? How does it function? What are its problems? And we did 2 studies. The second one was, given the problems, how do we bring it back in? And so it was a major study, because it's a major job to bring things back in, to get it done. And that kind of gave us the basis for moving forward to it. We found a number of things in those studies. Chronically short-staffed, chronically. So no guarantee of, we don't pay people by when they show up. We just give them the lump sum payment and they deliver the service. So no guarantee to the public institution that you're getting the service you're supposed to be paying for. Is your thing bumping yet? Oh, not just about. So chronically short-staffed, treated as second-class workers. I mean, seriously, they walk around with different suits on. They look different colors. There's say Sodexo or Compass on them. The worst insult I ever heard was another worker, saying to some cleaning person, hey, Sodexo, get over here and clean this up. So not only is it poor services, the lack of respect, they're not part of the safety programs. And then and then the final irony was when the companies, we would hire people to audit the companies to see if they're doing a good job. It turns out I found out that those same companies were hired by the companies to teach them how to pass the test. So that absolute fundamental conflict. So I just want to leave you with a few thoughts. It's no better time than now to do this project. The conditions are ripe. COVID, people have seen frontline workers for what they do. There is a consciousness about precarious work. And more importantly, we have a provincial government that supports it. And that's fundamental to this when you're dealing with public institutions, because the first thing your institution will do is say, who's going to pay for it? And so, the political support is there. In the last election campaign, it was in their platform to repatriate services. So, Katrina, thank you for being in government. And I would say that we wouldn't even be having this conversation in earnest if it wasn't for the fact that we have that government at this time. Other things to think about, tell the story. Real people's stories, that's what people listen to. It's about stories. Tell the story and tell the math. You've got to figure out the math. Maybe work with the university. They seem to be interested in working with you. Figure out the math. Don't trust the math when you first see it. I can tell you. And it's not all right when they're figuring it out. There's many ways to do that. And support. Unions, public support. You've got to build a campaign to make this successful and get other people to support you. And I think you will find that support when you do it. That's a bit, I think in the end, this isn't a new battle. This is just one more form of taking away people's rights. And getting rid of it is one more form of giving back people their rights and making them full, making them go to work with jobs that really are, that not just about, it's not just about money and having a pension plan. It's about dignity and respect. And as long as you're not going to be respected by an institution that doesn't even employ you, even though you go to work every single day at that institution and make it work. So again, thanks to everybody.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jim. I learned so much just from that. That's why I didn't stop you. But I feel like, because we're all here to learn and we're here to have this important discussion. So that's why I was just like, okay, let's chat a little bit longer. It's fine. Yeah, it's so true. One of my favorite chants that we do in our activism on campus is that the university works because we do. Without us, the workers, the university will not function. And it's really nice to hear that context from the health area, and that a lot of this kind of attack on workers is also similar, this kind of lack of respect, lack of dignity and fairness. So now let's bring our conversation to the context of higher education. Here we have Karen. Karen is the CUPE-BC president. We're so happy to have you here. And Karen just have a vast knowledge about secondary sector and about just what's been going on in higher education. So Karen, just fire away and share with us whatever you know about the higher education context. Thank you.
That is quite the introduction. Thanks, Jade. And I'd like to acknowledge that I am coming from the unceded and stolen territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I'm out here at our headquarters in Burnaby. And, when I was invited to be part of this, it's quite an honor to sit on a panel with these fine folks. I was thinking about my time. I've spent the majority of my adult life on academic campuses. I was a student at UBC, and then over 20 years, I was a student, a staff member, and then president of local CUPE 2950, where I had the honor to represent the clerical library and theater workers out there for 8 years. And so right now, before I get into that, I just got to give a shout out to CUPE 3338, our friends who work at SFU and who have just done so much for the campus community and the students during this pandemic. I really have a lot of respect for you folks, and it's great to be here representing CUPE workers. And when I was reflecting on my time at UBC has a lot of contracted in services, and and that includes food services and custodial services. And those workers are part of QP Local 116, a very established union local. But it was really interesting to see UBC, if you work for a building that is run by the university, you're in the union. And those are great benefits, great wages, pension, et cetera, everything that Jim talked about. But if there was a building that was being run by UBC Properties Trust, which is the university's own developer, those were non-union buildings. So you could have a Starbucks, and I'm thinking of the Starbucks that is in the building where Human Resources is, that is non-union. Those folks are making minimum wage. I would say about a 3-minute walk down to the Kaiser building, which is run by UBC, not Properties Trust, where those members are in QP Local 116. They had better wages. They had extended health and dental coverage. That was pretty good. They had vacation time, access to overtime, and to a pension. And that's just a 4-minute walk for doing the exact same work. And I always found that very, very, it's just unequal. It's not fair. And, you know, Jim talked a lot about, and I think what's become very clear during this pandemic, and this is something that a lot of us know, your life is so much better with a collective agreement than without. And so unionizing is a huge benefit for all of us, and it results in better working condition. It helps also build worker power and also gives you some security to use your voice. And, you know, having that security to be able to speak up when things are unjust is something that comes with unionizing. And it's not to say that everything's perfect. Unionized workers who are contracted out still face precarity in other ways, because they're working for third-party for-profit companies who are focused on one thing, and that's just making a profit at the expense of our most vulnerable workers on campus. And those workers, and we've heard a little bit about this, are disproportionately women and racialized workers. We talked a lot about contract flipping, and so with Minister Chen right in front of me, I'm going to ask her directly to consider helping, setting up a framework for post-secondary similar to healthcare, so that we can contract in those services so that those workers are protected as much as possible. And, you know, QP is very much vehemently opposed to privatization. That's probably not a secret. As Jim said, you know, when it comes to public services and public sector employers, it should all belong to the public, not to the private. And privatization undermines our community values. And, you know, when you look at what SFU purports itself to be through their strategic plans, through their missions, through their values, when they're talking about principles of equity, diversity, inclusion, these principles are not compatible with privatization. And so, you know, contracting out the work of the university's most precarious and undervalued workers is not cool. And I'm really, really excited to be here as part of a coalition. Our post-secondary campuses often get hung up in hierarchy. There's a lot of like people who work at universities know there's a lot of hierarchy on campus, who's where. And so it's really great to see all workers from all bargaining units with, you know, in concert with the student movement coming together and recognizing that justice for these workers is really important. And frontline workers have been seen as heroes during this pandemic. I've been seeing this thing going around social media, and it really resonated with me that we've always said that work like cleaning and food services is low-skilled work. It's not low-skilled work. It's low-waged work, and that's where this needs to end. I think reframing what work looks like. I think, you know, higher education exists to make the world a better place, and every single person who works on a university campus contributes to student success. It's from the person who cleans the classrooms to the instructors and the faculty members that deliver the lectures. all of us play that important role. And I think that's what the pandemic has done, is just highlighted that all of us are part of this campus community. And by and that the cleaning staff in particular were so essential to stopping the spread of COVID-19, and not just in hospitals, but but everywhere. And so now it's time for all of us to back up our actions with words, and stop being performative with our virtue signaling about what we should do, and actually get to it. And this is more about wages. Jim and Katrina have already talked about this. It's about respect. It's about dignity. And, custodial staff and food service workers should be full members of the campus community with access to all services at the university, and including into decision-making at the institution. So again, thank you so much. CUPE stands in solidarity with all these workers. And again, big props to local 3338 for holding it down at SFU during this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen. And yeah, I think that during this pandemic, one of the things that come out of it is this kind of more visibility to workers, right? To frontline workers and their work. So I think we should really ride on, this kind of visibility to continue to push for better working conditions. It's now or never. Right. Like now that I have been noticing as the vaccination is rolling out, people start thinking that we are trickling to a different stage of the pandemic, that the workers are become more and more invisibilized again. And it's about telling their story. It's about coming together. It's about standing in solidarity. And here I want to bring our conversation now to Mitch and Paul. Mitch has been I have learned so much from Mitch personally. He has worked at SFU for many years and have been very vocal and have been fighting for workers' rights on campus for a very long time. And we also have Paul here. Paul also used to work at SFU and now is a dedicated labor organizer at Unite Here Local 40, which all of the food service workers are unionized with. So I just want to bring the two of you into the conversation and just share with us what's been happening at SFU and why is this campaign important to you, and what do you envision, as we are as you being bring back in house, what do you envision that relationship with SFU and the community be like? So take your time and share with us.
Thanks for having me. Listening to the other panelists so far, that's great. You're covering so much of what I want to say, but I'll give you a more personalized experience. I mean, I've worked at SFU for well over 20 years now, and at times it's been good, but at times it's definitely been a struggle. And it felt like for a lot of us in food services, and definitely those in cleaning services, that we were stuck between a mini government being SFU and big corporations. So we had less of a voice directly, being contracted out. It made it difficult to have our voice heard and taken seriously. I've been watching the community on the mountain grow over the years, and it's come along. It's got some good growth. I'll give SFU some kudos in that they are moving forward. But the way things are now, they preach to the world that they are an engaged university, that they are a diverse university, that they are inclusive. By hiring contracted workers, it sort of goes against what they preach. And I like to press that upon the university, that this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to show that you have this opportunity to make things better for everyone on the mountain. You want to say that it's a community on the mountain, but you get to hold contract workers kind of at arm's length through the contractor. You're not responsible for their wages, their benefits, or for how they're treated. Whereas if you brought them back in-house, you're directly responsible. And that would go a long ways to following the message they're preaching. Get us all in the community and work together. Now is the time to do it. You've already moved forward from the past till now. Let's keep it going. Thank you.
Thanks, Mitch. Paul, would you like to add anything?
Yes, I would. I want to thank you, Jade, and all the people who've organized this campaign. I'm really, really happy to be here and to talk about it, because I've, over the last 4 or 5 years since we had a contract fight in 2017, that was against a contract flip where Compass went out and Sodexo came in, and we kind of had to join hands and really push in order to make sure that the incoming company was going to recognize our contract, recognize our union, allow us to bargain with them. That's when it really, really became obvious to me that the fact that the contractor has so little accountability, or because the university can use them to keep us at arm's length, really perpetuates a lot of the inequality that you see on Burnaby Mountain. We have this inclusive university that's very, very community focused, and yet it really feels as though a lot of the workers are kind of held down as second-class citizens within that community. And having worked in the catering department at SFU for 12 years, I can say that I've seen firsthand, what the consequences are when you have, as Karen has pointed out, this very problematic arrangement where a company comes in and they bid very low, and the only way that they can then make a profit is to find a way to turn it around and squeeze it out of the workers. I mean, as people who are involved in labor, we've all seen that very, common graph of here's what wages have done over the last X number of decades, and here's what productivity has done. And, the gap in between those two lines is the profit margin for these companies. And so they have this really vested interest in doing everything they can to continue forcing those lines apart, which obviously is the opposite of what we in the labor movement seek to do. And so what you see is that wages have stagnated, hours are cut, managers are continuously pushing for more productivity at all costs in these shops. And so we can fight at the bargaining table, and even if we win a really dynamite contract, if they're then able to turn around and continue doing this where they're squeezing the workforce, then we just haven't made a meaningful difference in people's lives. And so that's why I think this campaign is really important, because it turns around and it comes at the root of what makes it so that they're able to do that. And so I really think also that Jim has made great points about why the climate is right now to do this. And honestly, as Mitch is saying, I agree too. I think that this is an opportunity for the university, and I think that they're capable of doing this with us. And I think that, frankly, they can handle it. I think that they have the potential to be a fantastic employer, one that is willing to step up and be accountable and make sure that the workers at the university are first-class citizens the same as everyone else.
Thank you so much, Mitch and Paul. And, in the past few years of being a member at SFU, I really have been so inspired to work with so many different workers on campus in fighting the fight. And I see that we as workers and as community members, we need to come together and hold the university accountable. Because right now in this relationship, the university basically washes their hand of any responsibility of what's happening to this really important groups of people on campus. So we need all of you. And someone in the Q&A just now asked a very important question: is how can you get involved? We're really just starting this campaign. We're just gearing up. So this summer, this is just the first of our many different webinar or discussion or town hall that we want to do, and that we want to continue to learn from each other. So if you want to get involved, Janani is about to post a link in the chat. Just sign up. You're going to get updates from us, and there's also options for you to choose how you want to get involved with the campaign. You can be very involved, or you can, according to your capacity. I see a couple of other questions in the Q&A right now. I'm just gonna throw a couple out there, and the panelists can help us to respond. And also, I know that there's a lot of folks in the audience as well that you probably have experience with this. We also see some other folks from SFU, other workers from SFU. If you want to add anything, just type anything in the chat. One of the first question is a really usual one that we always ask, right? When we say this to SFU, the usual thing that SFU will say, oh, it's too expensive. We don't know how much we're going to spend on this. So can anyone give information about the cost of doing this elsewhere? So perhaps folks on the panelists who already have experienced this can give us a little just insight into this. Maybe Jim, you want to start first, or?
It really depends. So when home support came back over, they were unionized. There was a minor difference in unionization, so the actual cost was very small. And you have administration costs, but you're paying that to the private sector. So that one, we thought we'd save money at the end of the day on that one, but we'd also get better service. On housekeeping and home support and security services, things like that, it's a significant increase. How much is hard to determine because you don't actually have the data on what they're paying. So you know what you could pay now if you apply a standard collective agreement. So for instance, if in the case of healthcare, the standard collective agreement, the housekeeper working in the interior or in the north gets that pay, $21.50 an hour in the pensions. So we can apply that. But it is hard to tell what that difference is. It does cost money, but it all costs money. Everything you do at the university costs money, and you have to decide how you spend that money and what your priorities are. And I think it really comes down to, it's tough, but you can't live off cheap labor either. And there's a value system there. And that's also values. Money has value too, but so do the other values that we have, and that has to be applied. So again, I encourage at this point, if everybody that wants to do this can sit down in a room and kind of talk it through and come to some conclusion about that, then everybody would be dealing with the same numbers, and that could be helpful. And the university appears interested in talking about that. Well, that's a great place to start, because if the university agrees and you agree, that'll get you a long way down the road to getting the job done.
I see that, Karen, you also have a response. I just want to quickly tie this question into another question that's asked, because I think is really related. Kendra also asked, it would be interesting to hear more from the panelists about organizing around the question who is paying for cost saving, who is generating revenue, in this case for SFU. International students, for example, are another group harmed by this kind of approach in higher education. So I'm just want to tie this question in there and give it to Karen.
No, it's a great question. And, being around post-secondary for as long as I have, boy, do our institutions cry poverty when it's politically they cry poverty when it's a problem for them, not when it's it's a problem for anybody else. And so these institutions have deep pockets, and it's about choice. It's like the government. The government makes choices on what they're going to fund and what they're not going to fund. And so one thing that I am imploring everybody about, there's going to be a funding formula review of post-secondary education in British Columbia at some point this year. Our administrators in every institution will be talking to government, and we have got to ensure that workers' voices are also reflected in those consultations. So, it's really great that there is a coalition of people coming together, but come together to talk about the funding formula review so that we're not paying for these services off the backs of international students, which has always been seen as a cash grab. And that's not okay. If we can come together as working people to put our positions forward to those decision makers when it comes to what the funding formula is going to look like in post-secondary education in this province, let's ensure that the workers' voices are reflected there, and it's not just the voice of senior administrators who are going to find the money to fund what their priorities are, and their priorities certainly aren't ensuring that there is dignity and dignity and work on our campuses. They're frankly more interested in protecting themselves. So please, funding formula review. I know it doesn't sound very fun, but it's really important, and it's really important that the workers have their voices heard when those kinds of consultations come forward.
Trina, go ahead.
Thank you. And I want to continue and echo what Karen and Jim has already said, but also continue on that topic about, setting priorities, right? So there's two things we're looking at. One is on the SFU side, the other one is on the provincial government side that has a strong responsibility of better funding our post-secondary institution that has been starving for years. So I think, of course, on the SFU side, it's about priorities. Both the provincial government and SFU are looking at priorities about what we fund and who do we support. And I think supporting workers and students definitely should be the public secondary institutions' priority. And I also don't want to shy away from provincial government, that we have a responsibility to do the funding review. I would be excited to look at how can we strengthen the tuition limit policy, which currently prevents schools in the province from raising domestic tuition and mandatory fees for, I think it's more than 2% every year, and also creating more opportunities across the province. So I will love to see how our government can continue working with partners and with post-secondary institutions to go on that journey to review and to make sure there's more equitable funding. I am proud of what we have achieved so far since 2017, especially with former Minister Melanie Mark, that brought in tuition waiver for former youth in care, right, eliminating the student loans and expanding the BCSS grant. I think there's a lot of positive work that we've done, but we cannot stop here. And that's tied to a lot of other issues that we are talking about, including contracting out services, including student housing, tuition fees. And I think this is holistic. I totally agree with what Karen said. This is something that we have to collectively work on as a community and as a whole.
Exactly. And to really see the interconnectedness of all of this, because a lot of time when we bring this kind of issues to the university, oftentimes we will get response with, okay, maybe we can do this, but we can just raise tuition, right? Like that's not a response that we want. We want to make sure it's a fair campus for everyone. We have a question for Mitch or for Paul. Do you ever have interaction with SFU, even though they aren't your employer? If you have, what are they like?
I can go first.
Actually, I think, Mitch, you've got a productive answer. I think
yes.
I'd rather do my unproductive one first, which is
during
the security fight, we actually delegated the president's office. It was Andrew Petter at the time. And there were, 30 or 40 of us who went into his office, and, we were very interested in speaking with him. And we really wanted to start a dialogue about how we were going to have job security on the Hill, because there was so much fear and doubt around this new company that was coming in and didn't want to negotiate with us. And unfortunately, the president just declined to even come out and speak with us. And so just kind of hid away in his office while we made a ruckus in his main kind of reception area. And I think that's really emblematic of, the way in which the university is much more comfortable, or historically has been much more comfortable, keeping the contractor in between itself and the workers. But I'm sure Mitch has spoken to a lot of other people, so I'm sure he has something more productive to say, but that's been my experience.
Sure. I'll take this on a positive note, seeing as how you touched on our wonderful experiences of campaigning on campus. Working there for over 20 years, I worked very closely with people from every department, and I've worked with VIPs. I worked with 4 or 5 presidents from the university. We would do events in the private residence of the president, that's on campus. So we built a relationship, and there seemed to be a lot of respect. But when I tried to build these relationships to the point where I could have, a private conversation with them, it was always held at arm's length about when you wanted to talk about bringing contract workers in-house. And mostly it was political and it was civil, but things would be said to the effect of, well, the university is looking at that, but we're not ready to do that now. That's down the road. So, they were very civil and nice in that manner, but it was always felt like we were held at arm's length. Now for the people we worked on a daily basis with, it was really nice. And at one point in time, working at a Diamond Center, I was responsible for hiring, and I hired a lot of students. So I got to watch students come in first year, graduate, go on to a successful career. Whether they got their bachelor's or master's or the doctorates. I have seen all of that. And in fact, I'm still in contact with some of them. That's heartwarming. That makes me feel good that I got to help them along by, mentoring them in food services, which is obviously not going to be their career, but they enjoyed that. You know, that's a sense of community. And I think that's what SFU wants to continue with. They just need to prove that they will. So yes, lots of good interaction with staff and faculty from the university and the students.
So very positive experience with the community, but when it comes to administration, it's another story, as we all know so well as workers on campus. And I think one of the very important point that has been brought up by the panelists is also this kind of hierarchy of voices, whose voice get to be heard. As part of the community at SFU, I think that workers should have a voice in deciding where the university is going. And I'm really aware of the time is 12:59, and we still have some really good questions that I unfortunately we will not be able to address, but we will certainly take this all of these questions into consideration. I just want to let folks know, if you want to get involved with the campaign, please do sign up. We have a bi-weekly meeting that we will meet together, and we are beginning to talk about strategies and tactics when it comes to fall. We're going to kind of amp up our campaign in the fall semester, as SFU are also, we are returning back in person 80% capacity. So there's a lot of different things that we can do when fall comes. And for now, if you want to help out with the campaign, sign up and also just share words with everyone, with all of your network, people at SFU, people outside of SFU, and connecting with workers on other campus is also a really good idea as well. So thank you so much for being here. And I just it's just 1 minute left. I just want to see if any of our panelists would like to have a last word, a word of encouragement or word of solidarity.
It's just going to be 17 years since those women got contracted out in 2002, and we're going to fix that. But never give up, because it takes a long time sometimes, but we'll get there. And that's the story of changing the world. Is that it's not instant gratification. If you want that, you have to figure something else out. But it's certainly worth pushing really hard right now. And I think there's a win-win here for the university and for the people in the public and the people together. If we can frame it like that, that's how we'll win. Thank you, everybody, for your work.
Exactly. When the community comes together, we are powerful. Let's not forget that. Thank you so much, everyone. And please continue to sign up with us, submit more questions, messages of solidarity. We will see you soon again. We'll definitely see you soon again. And thank you so much for all of our panelists and for all the folks who work behind the scenes. Without you guys, we would not be able to put this webinar together. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Very proud to be here.